check, check. One sec, guys. Check, check, check. Did you have it on? Check, 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 check. Yeah, I can hear it on here now. You can hear it on the phone? I can hear it. It's coming through here. Okay. All right, I think we got it. Make sure you leave a comment down below if the audio is working correctly. I'm going to check the iPad over here real quick. Yeah, it's working. Cool. There we go. That's Fred, right? How's it going, Fred? And I think we're all out of turkey now. We finished all the turkey off for lunch today, so to answer that question you had earlier today. So cool, guys. Thanks again. As we've been noticing with these live feeds, especially when you're doing multiple cameras and microphones and all that good stuff, there's a little bit of technology that goes into all that. Some of these apps and programs aren't always working like we want to. But what we are doing here today, we're trying to do a multicam kind of a thing where we got a main camera view, and then I'll have Major switch over to our cockpit cam here. We're going to switch over to that real quick. We'll show you that. Did you get the switch over? Okay. Did you switch over to the other camera? Switch it. Check, 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 check. 1, 2. Very low. Okay, we're working on that. Les. I can also turn it up on my mic here, but I got it cranked up pretty much. All right, there's camera 2. So we've got you've got an instrument panel behind the scenes view here, and I can also move that camera around a little bit to kind of show you what we've been working on here. With this as we work out the small details here. Are you listening to the audio? How is it? We're up? Just make sure the volumes are good. Bring that up a little bit. If it's low. How's the audio sounding, guys, now? I still hear, okay, much better, Les said. Cool. Perfect. All right. I think we're good then. All right, guys. If we get any big questions there, Major, you'll have to throw them at me. So welcome back to Saturday Night Live, live feed number 3. We'll go ahead and pull this camera up here. Move it around a little bit. There we go. Can you see me there? Can you see me? So, what have we been doing on the Super Duty this week? Well, we've got a bunch of things going on. We got the header tank installed. We got the wiring for the header tank installed. We got the fuel pressure sensor from Dynon installed. And we're slowly working our way from the back hole there towards the front. Now, there was a slight change, and in talking with Jan from Viking, we decided to try out the new two-way valve that helps you balance fuel in the wings left and right. So didn't realize that was a huge issue. Again, I'm not a Zenith pilot as of yet, but we have heard from other pilots who said that that was an issue, and I don't know if it's specific to the Viking engine or the Zenith in general, but to where you always had one tank that was draining quicker than the opposite tank. So you might have a right wing that's draining faster than the left wing. Even though they're both gravity fed, one always kind of takes the lead, and that's the one that's going to prioritize over the other one. So what the Viking valve does, and it's no different than any, let me move this here, any valve that anybody else makes. But basically what it does is we have our fuel coming in up here on the side of the aircraft. We're going to have two pass-through valves here, one for the fuel line itself and one for the vent line. They'll be coming through the side here, and they'll be coming through on the inside of the aircraft and then heading towards the aft. Now that's the way we were going to do it. We're going to have two elbows basically paralleling each other, one long, one short, making an immediate 90 and heading through the channel cover here, right through the back baggage wall, if you will. But what we're going to be doing now is installing the left-right valve up here on the over arch, and then the feed lines will come in from the left and right into the valve from both sides, and then we'll only have one output heading back to the header tank. We were going to have two, but now with the left-right valve, we're only going to be feeding off either the left or right tank, which will give us the ability to balance fuel on a long cross country. Let's say if we're flying along and we're having to hold some right aileron in there and we're not flying on autopilot, we can, switch tanks and balance out the wings. And I've talked to Jan, who does have an autopilot, and he said that even there are times when the aircraft gets so out of balance that it even overrides the autopilot, because it's just like you're pushing past the limits of the autopilot and it kicks off. So this will give us the ability to balance out the fuel. There's been a couple pilots on there on the forums that have said that this has fixed their issue as well. So I'm all for it. It does, you can look at it a couple different ways. Does it add a little complexity to excuse me, a call coming in there, to the fuel system? It can, but we can do that with fuel reminders on the Dynon. But it will give us, the pros outweigh the cons, I guess is what we should say on that, because it's going to give us the ability to, again, balance out that fuel a little better. How much cord do I have there? Am I right up the, what's that? Yeah, any specific questions? Here's that aero creeper I've been using. Does this thing come in handy? Let me lower this down here for a second. Trying to do that one-handed. No, go to this. This is fine. So the nice thing with this is I can roll up in here, and then bring my head right up inside. So anyways, I'd like to bring you guys in here with me. So here's what we got here for the header tank installation. Got the header tank installed. We've got our two feed lines, our bleed back vent line. We've got our pressure sensor, and then what I did is I put a terminal strip here. And you guys are all getting a little heads up on the next episode, by the way, so you're getting a little sneak preview of what's going to be in our next full-on episode. But we've got the fuel pump 1, fuel pump 2, and the fuel transducer all landed here, so everything's terminated in the back. That'll allow us to land our wires here going forward. Here's our fuel pressure sensor, and then here's our fuel out to the engine. So that we're still working on, because we've got to get a fuel filter and a cube for fuel flow installed somewhere between here and the engine, and the quicker we can do it back here the better, because we want a long continuous run up towards the engine. So anyways, wanted to give you that quick shot there, and we'll come back out here and we'll put this up front. Been working on one other thing on the engine here, and that is the cooling, which you can start to see my cooling lines here. Now this, you notice here we got this kind of weird angle. This is going to actually be like this, but you can see I ran out of pipe here a little short. And I think what Viking typically does on theirs is they just run a long pipe diagonally down like this, which I could have done, but I think that looks kind of dumb. So I'm more about right angles and parallel and level and all that good stuff. So I ordered up another 3 feet of pipe here just to make up a longer piece. So this will all be secured up. We'll put the bevels on the end of the pipe. We'll put the clamps on. We'll get it all sealed up. And we're one step closer to this engine being wrapped up and ready for first start there. Let me see if I can get over to the toolbox here. Over here on the toolbox, this is an example of that pipe that we're using for the cooling. It's just basically an aluminum pipe, and I can give you the specs on that in a second. What we need to do is we use this bevel tool here. This bevel tool goes on the inside of the pipe. This knob or this nut gets cranked down, and then what happens is those ball bearings expand out, and as you twist this around, it puts a nice raised ridge on this pipe so that when you push your tubing over, you have a place to clamp on the other side of that fitting. So Viking does include this in their Firewall Forward package, and that's kind of a cool little tool to have. It allows you to turn this tubing into essentially cooling pipe, if you will. Here's that fuel filter that we have to put after the output of the header tank, along with our cube. This is the FT60 cube made by Electronics International. It's pretty standard on a lot of aircraft, but it works with the Dynon and everything. And this is going to give us fuel flow on the Dynon screen. So we've got fuel coming out from the header tank into the fuel filter, out of the fuel filter into the FT60, and then directly to the engine, which basically will be coming, I'll show you here. Okay, well, I'm going to look at some chat here in just 1 second, guys. Thanks for bearing with me here. Here is the high pressure line that's coming in, and that'll basically route down. There'll be a 90, and it'll run along the bottom of the aircraft down here, because we're going to have that belly pod on here. It'll run down the bottom, pop back up into the cabin, and then through this channel and into that area there where it'll connect up to the header tank. So that's kind of what we're got going there. Let me take a look at some of the chat here in case I'm missing some questions. Let's see here. Go to the bottom here. Will Dynon show the fuel level on all 3 tanks? Yes, it will. Ferdy, I did verify that. Dynon has some standard inputs, but then they, if you want to switch back over here, Dynon has some standard inputs for like 2 fuels and the oil pressure and all that, but they allow you to customize a bunch of different ones for anything you want. So whether that be landing gear, flap position, you know, anything you want pretty much. So that was one of the things I was concerned with. So we'll have the standard 2 fuel tank levels, and then we'll have a header tank level on there as well. And let's see. Ashley, looks like you got your answer. Let's see. Love your son on the plane. Watch it from start to finish. Yeah, it's been a 50-year dream of mine, or let's say 40 years. It's pretty much since I was a little kid, always wanted to build a plane, and you know, I started it last year. So it took me 50 years to get to that point, but enjoying the build so far. Hey Bill, how's it going? And let's see what else we got. Any other questions there? So yeah, so just want to make sure I caught up with the questions. So in the next video that we're going to be putting out, I believe that's episode 51. It's also part 2 of the fuel system. UPS was actually supposed to be here today. I think they probably got a little ahead of themselves and are coming probably Monday. But on Monday, we'll have that fuel selector valve along with a couple other parts that we're going to be adding, something you may or may not have seen from Viking that they're producing. And we'll do a little sneak peek of that possibly. But those parts will be in, and then we'll jump right back into filming the part 2 of the fuel system, which is basically taking it from the wings to the valve back to the header tank, so that we have a complete system minus what's going to be built into the wings. That's kind of part 2. We'll also finish up, hopefully, I do believe my aircraft spruce order will be here, which was 3 more feet of pipe. So I'll be able to finish up this coolant system. That'll allow me to seal up things there, put coolant in, put oil back in the engine, and basically that engine is going to be ready to start, minus a couple switches and things in the cockpit. So that's kind of where we're at with first engine start. How many hours a day do I spend on my build? If you asked me, I would say anywhere from 1 to 5 hours. If you asked my wife, she'd say 24 hours a day. But that's just the way it goes. So I try and work on it as much as I can when I'm not traveling. I do travel a lot for work, and so when I'm back at home base, my shop is also a portion of my office, so I can work pretty readily on it when I need to. I think that's all the new questions. I'm going to put the iPad back on the charger and use my phone for that. But yeah, definitely shout out the questions if you have them, and we will get them answered for you. Audio is good and everything? Okay. Let's switch back to that cockpit view, and I'll show you something else that we did here. Okay. Let me see what we got here. I don't know if I can see my questions on here. Oh, live chat, right here. The build seems to be very complex. Can the average guy have the confidence to do this? I would say you definitely have to be, yeah, you can leave it there. Ashley, I would say you have to have a little bit of handyman skills or a little bit of DIY, but it's definitely not something that you can't do. I mean, you know, most of the construction of the aircraft is pretty straightforward. If you've never been to one of the workshops that Zenith puts on, you actually build the tail in the workshop, and that's probably one of the most complex parts to build because you're building the skeleton, you're putting round parts on, you're putting the skins on, and kind of the premise behind that is it's the cheapest part of the aircraft. I think it's about $400. A lot of times they include the class in there. And if you can build that, then you probably can build the rest of the airframe, is kind of the way it goes with them. Now, the complexity starts when you start talking about avionics and engine. You know, luckily Viking has a ton of videos out there. They break down the components like electrical, fuel, cooling, and they have it in videos to where you can watch them several times and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can do that step by step. The avionics portion, I have an electronics background, so I wasn't too scared of that. There are companies that do turnkey panels. You know, you can buy the entire panel built, basically. So that's an option too. They make custom harnesses, but there's also a ton of free information on all the websites. So like Dynon and Garmin have, you know, manuals and how-tos and configurators where you can just click all the buttons, tell them what you want, and it tells you all the parts and pieces. They have colored guides and wiring diagrams. So, you know, if you're somewhat technical, you can get through most of that. Let's see, once your glare sheet is clear, how you access the batteries and all the stuff behind the panel. So let me jump, yeah, I'll jump back to that. That's a good question. So, let's see, is it Ferdy? Yeah, Ferdy had a question about the glare shield, and you switched over that. And the how do I get to the stuff behind the panel? So let me wait for that camera to switch views here. There we go. It just takes a second. And so that was one of the things I was going to talk about that we got done this week. So my panel is already pre-built. It's on a thicker aluminum panel. If you've seen a previous video, we've showed the panel completed. And what we did is we took the stock Zenith panel. Actually, it took a cruiser panel because the Super Duty doesn't come with a cruiser panel. It comes with a Stoll panel, which actually stops right in this area here and gives you a little bit more view. I chose to go with the cruiser panel, but what I had to do is basically skeletonize the panel because this is really just going to be the backbone for mounting the main panel too. So I've got nut plates. I don't know if you can see those here because I can't see what's on my camera, but they're installed here with nut plates. My panel will mount right there. So to answer Ferdy's question is once the skin goes on in this area right here, which basically goes from the firewall a little bit forward to back here and down, how do I get to the stuff in here? Well, the answer to that is I have two gigantic holes right here that I can pull out. So my iPad mount and my Dynon screen are just 4 bolts. I can pull those out and I can get to this stuff in here. I also have this room on both sides, so I can come from under and reach things here. I can go from the other side and reach up and get around there. Not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but it can be done. Now the other option would be, I've seen on a couple aircraft where they've actually cut in panels right here, and that would give you a little bit more access, although you're going to have your windshield on here, but there might be the option to where you could put a panel right here on the finished glare shield that could be removed, and then if you needed to get down in here to get something, or maybe on the battery side, that might give you some more access to getting into your batteries. Again, both sides have this opening right here, so if I needed to get up in here, I could. And then also on my passenger side, the iPad screen is very large, and with 4 screws it comes out, and I would basically have a hole here to get into here. So that's the answer to that question as far as getting into the batteries and things behind the panel after that has been completed. Let's see. How's the support tech assistance experience been? Yeah, I would say it's fine. If you're talking about Zenith in general, keep in mind that the premise that Zenith has, and I think most kit plane manufacturers have, is that you're the builder. They're not the builder. So once you take a kit and you take it home and you start doing whatever you're doing to it, even if you build it per the manual, you're still the builder. So they're going to help you with those questions like, I don't understand this part of the drawing, or this bracket doesn't quite fit where it's supposed to. What do I do? Roger is excellent about that. He's going to give you quick answers on things. But it's not always, a cut and dry answer. It's kind of like, oh yeah, you can do that, or you can do this, or you can do that. So know that you're going to have to kind of use some of your own knowledge. And there are a lot of great books out there. The FAA actually puts out a book on aircraft alterations, maintenance, and repair. I would definitely get that book because it does give you all the information on things like torque values and washer usage and all the things that you're going to need to know as far as how an airplane goes together legally. That's definitely something that you want to take a look at, just because it's kind of like the Bible for airplane construction. So that's definitely something that I would definitely recommend getting. And I can grab that book here in a second, show you what it looks like. You can pick it up on Amazon. So yeah, so we're kind of in a slight holding pattern. Like I said, we're waiting on that valve. We're waiting on a couple more parts, and then we're going to start working our way forward with the fuel system. Once we get past the next fuel filter and the FT60 cube, it'll be a straight shot down the bottom of the aircraft to the firewall, 90ing up, and then we'll loop up, and again, we'll be right in here to the fuel system. Some of you may or may not know that we have been also, let me move some boxes here real quick. We have our right wing on the table here, and that is basically getting all the final rivets done on the ribs and everything, and the trailing edge. And then the next step will, of course, be skinning the bottom and working our way to the top, running wires, running fuel lines. We did show our fuel tanks that we got 2 episodes ago. We got the welded-in fuel bungs done. That was to allow us to use the fuel transducers versus the VW floats that they use or they send with the kit. So that is something that we'll be installing once that bottom skin gets on. Of course, the tanks go right in here. We've got a full fuel system that will take the vent line and fuel line out of the fuel bay and take it to the wing root so that it's ready to go right up to essentially our pass-throughs up on the wing. So this is what the pass-through looks like right here. And again, this valve here, we're going to be doing away with that most likely, because now we've got another valve in there. So that did change slightly, because originally the fuel lines were going to be going this direction. So picture this on the inside of the plane. Now they're going to be coming from the other direction. So we're most likely just going to have this pass-through right here like this. And that'll give us that connection for fuel and a connection for vent on both sides. From there, they'll head back, they'll go through the back wall, and then they'll come down to the header tank and be terminated there. So that'll take us from aircraft fuselage down to the header tank. The header tank's 2.5 gallons, so it's about a half hour of fuel runtime on the Super Duty. So once we get that in place, we can essentially start the engine by having fuel in that header tank. Like I said, panel is complete. We've got to get this drilled up on the bottom here. We're making up some cross members up here to get this all stiffened up, put an angle in here to stiffen that up. Because again, we cut 99% of the material away, and a lot of that strength is going to come from that skin that goes on the top here. What do you got, Major? Question? Let me see here. Ashley says, I think it would be nervous when it came to painting. That's a skill all on its own. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's one, you know, aircraft painting or car painting of any kind. If you're not familiar with what we've done so far, we've actually powder coated everything. This is our elevator here that's all done and powder coated. Super nice finish on there. And we got the horizontal powder coated. So what's going to be left on this aircraft is the fins there will be powder coated orange. This fuselage will be painted, and we'll go into the details on the paint job later, but those will all be painted. The landing gear here is powder coated. That's a powder coated black. And the wheels on this, these were anodized black. So I talked to Matco in the beginning when I was assembling the wheels, and I said, you know, can I powder coat the wheels? Is there any issues? And he says, well, you know, we anodize the wheels black, and that would be a better option. So I actually sent my stock silver wheels back to Matco, and they anodized them for me. So this is you know, the finish and the feel of them is exactly like it was with the silver ones, except they're black. So, and I like the fact that the factory did it, so I didn't, you know, really alter the wheels in any way. So that is as far as the painting goes. You know, again, painting, one cool thing with aluminum is you don't have to paint it if you don't want to. You can always polish it, you could paint it, you can leave it bare. We are going to be painting ours, so when we get to that point, we'll basically have a rolling fuselage. We'll take off the horizontal, and we'll mask up everything else up, then we'll spray this fuselage on the exterior, and we'll spray the wings, and that's 90% of the paint job on this, minus the parts that have already been powder coated. The doors on here, they're going to be painted black. I'm going to do that in-house right here. If you've seen my paint scheme on some of the pictures or the diagram in our YouTube channel, channel art, you've seen kind of the paint job. But yeah, the door frames will be painted black, windows in there, fuselage is gray with some black on the top, and then all orange. And then our wings are all gray with the leading edge being orange as well. So it's kind of a cool paint job. It basically goes with our logo, which is our AeroWorks Productions colors. We use gray, black, and orange. There's the rudder over here. This has also been painted, or excuse me, powder coated, I should say. You're going to notice on there on the nose of the rudder that we have some masking paper, or should we say wax paper, whatever that is. I had one of the early rudder kits, and if you've built one, or depending on if you have a kit already, if you notice that nose part there, if you have the straight version, so we're talking about like this section right down in the front there, right below the paper, if yours is straight like that, you're going to have to cut that. So if you've built a rudder in the last year and yours has that curve where the paper curves up and then goes like that, you're probably fine. But basically, you cannot put that rudder on with your horizontal because it will not clear the horizontal tail without that cutout in there. So you got to have to do that. So that's not going to be fun. We're going to have to figure out if we can get that cut, or you know, use nibblers or whatever we're going to do to work our way up to that line and not ruin the rest of the powder coating. So that was, you know, a fault of my own there, not understanding that that wasn't a finished edge on that rudder kit. And that's just because it was an early kit, and you know, we had one of the early ones. I've seen a couple other builders that have that straight piece on there as well, and that's something that we're going to have to basically do. So, hey, and it looks like the UPS guy just pulled in, so we might have our parts early today. So that's a good thing. Yeah, and so up on the tail there, if you have that horizontal on there and you go to put up your rudder, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the rudder to fit over the top of there without that cut. So you got to put that relief cut in there. So that's going to be a challenge, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Was it difficult to level the horizontal stabilizer onto the tail section? No, it wasn't, but you know, there's not a lot of room to do anything really back there. It's kind of funny because I've seen people talk about, and I'm at the mercy of the cord here we're walking around with, but if you see up there the archway that's created right below there, that's kind of a fixed piece. So that's riveted on the aircraft, and the mounting angles that are on the bottom of the horizontal, the rear ones fit on the inside and the front ones fit on the outside, and there is zero, and I mean zero, wiggle room left or right, only up and down. And there is no scientific method for mounting this other than make sure it's level, and you know, they say make sure it's square, but again, even if you were to pull a string line from the tip leading edge of this horizontal to, let's say, the cabin frame or the wing mounts on both sides, if you had a major difference there, there's not really a whole lot you could do about it because you're not going to be able to move the horizontal left or right. The only thing you can do is shim it up off of the mount with popsicle sticks, and it's about 2 or 3 popsicle sticks gap there, and I don't have them all in there now, but that's about it. So, you know, we're not talking a lot of wiggle room for left and right correction like you might think there is. So I've seen a lot of people worried about twist and all that, and that, you know, that can be corrected on the bench when you build the skeleton and skin it. But when you get this mounted up there, there is no wiggle room back there, left or right. I mean, literally none. And if I could take this camera back there with me, I would show you that there isn't. Let's see what we got here. Hey, Brian. Let's see. Are you planning on venting your tanks out the bottom like the factory, or drilling the fuel caps and venting out of the top? My tanks are vented with the stainless lines. So I don't have the tanks in this room. I can go grab one here in a second. But basically, the wing tanks have the feed line, and then they have a complete vent line, which then comes into the side of the fuselage up here and then goes back to the header tank. So the header tank now, with the change that we've made, is going to have 2 vent lines, 1 feed line, because we took away the second one when we put in the left-right valve. And basically we'll have the option of switching left or right, feeding the tank from the gravity-fed tanks, and then the header tank will always be full until the tanks run out of gas, and then we'll be on the header tank for a half an hour. But they have the 2 fuel pumps in the bottom of the header tank, and that's where we get our fuel from. The venting comes from the header tank being vented up through into the vent port on the outside edge of the fuel tank. Hopefully that answers your question on that one. Does it bolt on through the angle? Yes, it does. So that if you can kind of see here, how much room do I have there, Major? I might be able to reach. Let me see. I'm stretching her out here, trying not to lose the cord. Let me make sure we got a good view here for you. There we go. Put the camera up here. There we go. Okay, so once you get your horizontal leveled up like this, again, there's no movement left or right. I mean, I can grab this and move this left or right. All I'm doing is moving the airplane. So once you have this gap set, and again, it's about 2 or 3 popsicle sticks. I only have 1 in here. And you have your level of your horizontal level with the cabin frame, then you're going to drill through here, and a bolt goes through there. And on the back, it's the same way. It's right where this clamp is. But basically, the angles on the inside here. Why they put this one on the outside, I don't know. They could have turned this 90 degrees and put it on the inside like on the factory, but on this one, it's on the outside. And yes, that's the way they are now. I don't know why they changed it, but this on the outside. So bolt goes through here, bolt goes through there, and that's what holds on your horizontal. And again, your only adjustment is going to be whether you slide this in this cradle up or down to get level, because there is no twisting it this way. It's stopped. You see how tight this is on the outside of here? It's the same tightness on the outside of the other side, and the pieces on the inside are just as tight on the inside. So there's not going to be any twisting this really at all. If you did, you'd be bending something. So, you know, for people who say, well, you got to square that up and all that, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of squaring up there unless you're bending something. Have you seen the guy trying to blame Zenith for the crash? Yes, I watched all that video, and I won't get into that whole thing because I wasn't there. But if you watch both videos, especially the guy's video who explained what happened, every single thing he blamed on the crash was due to his own fault. I mean, not checking bolts, not checking sandbags, I mean, it was ridiculous. No pre-flight. You know, you got to take some ownership. If you're PIC and you're flying a plane, the last thing I'm going to do, jump in somebody's plane that was supposedly ready to go and not do a pre-flight or check it out top to bottom. So yeah, I've seen all of that. And I've seen the rebuttal from Viking as well, and it's in my mind, it's exactly what I would have said. So cool, Ferdy. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Fred ELT. I am using the. We'll jump over here. I am using the AKC. I'll use this one just for a sec. Oh yeah, I can. You want to switch to the big one? We're going to switch cameras here just for a sec. Okay, it's on? Well, it takes a second to switch though, is the thing. Okay. Let me see here. So this is the, can you see this right here? The AKC model EO4. And this is it's totally up to date. It's a 406 style. And that's basically what you get in the kit. So you get the ELT, you get the sounder, you get the whip antenna, which on my aircraft will be dead center, mid fuselage back. And then you also get the you get some cables and a mount, and then you get the remote tester and annunciator, which I already have in my panel over there. So this seemed like a pretty good unit. It had really good reviews. It will be mounted aft in the, we'll call it the access hole. My wife hates when I call it the other thing. But there'll be the bracket, the clamp bracket will be back in there in that header tank area, and this will be mounted up back there. So that'll be nice for the antenna, will be nice short run. The only thing I'll have to do is get the wiring up to the annunciator. But yeah, that's the brand I went with. Did some research as far as cost and everything. This was the one that fit the bill the most, and it had great reviews. Made in the USA, meets the specs. That's the one I went with. How are we doing on other questions here? Yeah, the Viking looks good on there. Yeah, I like it too so far. It's coming together. Anybody who didn't see some of the wiring and stuff that we went through on that, I can give you a quick overview. If we switch cameras here real fast, I'll switch back to the handheld GoPro. Just give you a quick overview of what we've done and where it's at so far. You've switched already? What does it take, about 10 seconds? There we go. Okay. Well, it takes a second because we're not looking at it live. Yeah, we're looking at it delayed. Okay, so as you can see, I started with the coolant system yesterday on that. This pipe's going to go up, kind of crisscross to the other side, and that picks up over here on the top, runs in, goes through, comes out, back down, and makes a loop again. Again, This pipe here was not long enough. This will actually be parallel, nice and tight like that. We'll put some spacers in there, and then we'll continue this down and put a clamp on there. As far as sensors go, we've got a gearbox temp sensor. We have a coolant sensor. We have a intercooler inlet and outlet sensor. And then, let's see, that's it on the engine side. Oh, we do have a manifold pressure, I'm sorry, an oil pressure sensor, which is right here. I don't have this, this is not the spot it's going to go, but it comes down here, taps into the engine case there. And then I do have one sensor that's not on there yet because we're working on finishing up some other stuff, but that's the manifold pressure sensor. And that basically taps into any one of these brass plugs right here. So there'll be a brass plug, will be removed. I have a small orifice that goes in there, and then it's some rubber tubing, and then it goes up basically to the manifold pressure. As far as starter and alternator goes, we have our main power coming into the starter, and then we switched it up a little bit. We have our alternator here. This is the wire to turn that on, and the harness from the factory. And then we have our feed to basically provide charging power. We have a separate line going back up to an amp shunt here that's going to go through, and then it lands on the positive lug to charge the batteries. This guy right here will pick up two dynon sensors or wires here, and then we'll have amperage coming off of this shunt right here to know how much amperage we're putting out. Down here we have a pass-through. This is the ECU wiring from the engine and some other wiring that I did. Again, this is all in a previous video. This is some fiberglass shielding. It's good to up to like 1300 degrees. I liked it better than the split loom, and it's a little easier to work with. So this will all be zip tied real nice and tight. There's a top to this part that'll go on, and this will all be ran through here nice and clean. And then on the inside, we have the wiring harness. And again, this is the factory one. This is right here from Viking Aircraft. And on the bottom of my avionics tray, see if I can get down here for you, we've got the engine ECU. Now I might have to move this because when I mounted that up outside the plane, I forgot about the center console here, and this plug's a little close. So I may just have to move it back or turn it, but that's where that's going to go. All this here basically will plug in there. And then the remainder of these wires here, we have like alternator, light, starter, and these are all wired from the factory. Viking view, only if you're using the Viking view. Basically alternator, starter, and what was the last one here? Alternator light, if you're going to use that. So all the small wires here in this little bundle are ones that are going to land on this terminal strip over here. So everything inside the plane lands on the right side. Everything coming from the engine lands on the left side, makes it real easy. And then basically you just use your other bus bars for powering up avionics and things like that. So this whole area here has been covered in, I think, 2 episodes ago. Again, we got our brake lines installed, brake valves installed. Brake lines run down through the middle, and then they pop out down here. And there is the output. The brake lines will then run along the bottom, down the legs, into the brake cylinders themselves on each side. I don't actually have the brakes installed on here yet. And one of the things that we did get coming from Viking is kind of a cool accessory. We're going to show you that in the next episode because it does have something to do with the brakes as well. Here's the fuel lines. These are the ones from Aircraft Specialty. Again, stainless steel lines, top notch, top quality. These are the lines that are basically going to go from the inside of the cabin frame. So again, here's like a long 90. This long 90 will pick up like this and head straight to the back. So everything was planned out as far as 90s and angles and how many 90s and what side of the aircraft it's on. And we worked that out with Steve over there at Aircraft Specialty to get to the back. What's that? Battery's low? Okay. All the wiring looks good. Thanks, Sonny. And hey, Sonny Crockett from Miami Vice. Love that show. Let's see. What will all the engine sensors be shown on the Dynon as well? Yes, every single sensor that I just went over will be shown on the Dynon. Let me set this camera down for 2 seconds here. And we're going to just swap batteries on our other camera just real quick. Take me 2 seconds. If you got any other questions, let me know what you guys are building. I'd love to know, you know, what projects you guys are working on, what stage you are in your builds. Are you building a Zenith? Are you building something else? Anything like that you want to share with the other viewers, let them know. Are you guys liking the Saturday Night Lives? Are we giving you enough information, or is it just kind of, hey, it's the same thing over and over again? I'm just kind of here, you know, again, I love sharing the information, sharing what I'm going through. If somebody has a question or somebody has a tip, I'm all for that as well, because you know, we're all learning. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a first-time builder, been around aviation my whole life, but you know, this is really a first for me as well. So back up there. There we go. Let me see if we got any other.
You're back up. I'll switch the camera.
Cool.
Somebody asked about money.
You want to put it back on this one?
Yeah, it's back.
Okay, let's see. Thanks, Adam. Looks good. Ashley wants to know, is it safe to say this could set someone back $100,000 to complete? Sure. It could, you know, I don't know what their estimate for finishing a Super Duty is, but let's just use the big 3 numbers. You got the kit cost, you have the engine cost, you have the avionics cost. The kit, you can't really change that price. The engine, you've got a pretty good range there, because you've got anywhere from $30,000 for Viking to $45,000 for a Continental or Lycoming, so there's a big gap there. And then you've got avionics. Now, avionics, you could put 2 iPads in there, and it could cost you $2,000. You could put a full IFR panel in there, it could cost you $20,000. So I think your biggest fluctuation in price comes from the panel first, and then your engine second. Because the kit itself, that's kind of a fixed cost, and I don't remember exactly what the full kit cost as a complete, you know, here's the whole thing in a box price. I want to say it was like 25 or 6 or somewhere in there. Let's just call it 25 for even numbers. So if you've got 25 for the aircraft, you've got 30 or more for the engine. Now you're looking at, what is that, 55, 60? And then your avionics could be anywhere from 10 to 20. So let's just say on the high side 20. You know, right there you're at 70. You've got tools, you've got parts and pieces, you've got bolts and wire and paint and your time and all that. So yeah, I mean, I would say you're easily going to complete it for 100. Hopefully you could do it for less than that. But again, your biggest variation, whether you want to look at it as the cost savings or whether you want to look at it as the place where that price is going to fluctuate the most, is going to be in your avionics. Because again, you could put steam gauges in there, meaning the old round style. You could put 1 Dynon screen like I did and then an iPad. You could put 2 Dynon screens. You could put an autopilot system. I mean, all that stuff is just ching, ching, ching. Everything seems to be $500, $750, $1,000. Everything's like, it's like an auctioneer going there. So the cockpit area, leather seats versus the vinyl seats that Zenith sells, you know, there's a little bit of money there you could save. You know, polishing or leaving it aluminum versus paint. Now, if you paint it yourself, you're looking at your time and your cost of the paint. You take it to a painter, it could be $10,000, $20,000 for a paint job. So a paint job, I guess, I kind of consider that an optional thing, because you don't have to paint a Zenith. In fact, we see a ton of Zeniths that are either partially painted, or they have a stripe on them, or they're just polished, or they're just aluminum. So that is one nice thing with an aluminum aircraft, is you don't have to paint it. So I kind of left that part out. But again, engine and avionics, there's some fluctuation there. And then, of course, the price of the kit itself is where you don't have a lot of fluctuation. But you do want to factor in, there's a lot of other things like tools. You know, if you don't have any tools to start with, you are going to need a few things, not a ton of things, but there are some specialty tools. You're going to have to buy a lot of Clecos. And if you're not familiar with what a Cleco is, let me grab you one here. You're going to be buying hundreds of these. Let me get the tool that uses them real quick. I don't know how how this looks on camera. How does this look? Is it good? Yeah. So that's a Cleco, and they come in basically 3 or 4 different sizes. This is a set of Cleco pliers. Goes on there, you squeeze this, the center gets real skinny, you put it through the hole, you let go, and it opens back up, and it holds 2 pieces of metal together. You use these all over the airplane to hold it together while you're riveting, drilling holes. And Zenith has on their website and in their build manual the quantities that you need to buy. So there's like one color you need, 300-400 of them. One you might need 100. One you might need 200. So right out of the gate, nobody, if you've never built an airplane, has Clecos. You might have a drill, you might have a screwdriver, you might have pliers. You're probably not going to have Clecos. So right out of the gate, you're going to probably have to spend, $400 or $500 just on pliers, drill bits, and Clecos. Now there are some options. If you join EAA, you have a local EAA chapter, you can go possibly borrow some, or maybe you have a friend that built a plane and he's done building. He's got a bunch of these laying around. You can buy them used on eBay. So there's some ways to save money that way. But there are some specialty tools that you will have to purchase to complete your build. Okay, let's see. Let's see what else. Yeah, Bill, I know you missed the last one. Glad to have you on this one. Sorry, Sonny, does the airplane have slats? It has, I guess they are considered slats. They're fixed though, so some aircraft have slats that move, or like on a helicarrier, they actually drop down when the airplane gets at a certain speed. These do have leading edge slats, and they're fixed though, so they're always out, which is good and bad. One, it's good because the plane takes off really quick. The bad part is it doesn't go that fast. So slats and that create a lot of lift, but they also create drag. So, but yes, it does have those. Super Duty. Just finished the tail section. Cool. Love the SNL. Awesome. I've seen Zenith's unpanel or whatever they call it. The vertical screen, pretty neat. Yeah, I looked at the unpanel as they call it, and we can jump back to the right here. Now, the one issue with the unpanel, and for those, you're on switching. So for those of you who don't know what the unpanel is, basically, you don't have anything in this area here. The unpanel basically mounts right to the firewall, and it has almost like a monitor mount. And then they have a vertical screen right here that is put out by Evolution. I believe it's called with an A, so Evolution, kind of like evolution, but Evolution. And they run their own software. It's kind of a proprietary software and screen setup. The problem is you lose all of the area to run cabling and everything. So while you probably lose a little bit of the need for wire because you have this built-in screen here, you do lose the ability to have switches or buttons or anything in this center section because you've eliminated all this area here and just put a screen right here. So the factory demo, if you've never seen the factory demo, take a look at that and really take a look at what they've done down in here, what they've done with the overhead. They actually have a switch panel up here. They've had to move some stuff around. For me, I kind of like the traditional screen, so I went with a wider panel to give me room to put the full 10-inch screen here and a 10-inch screen over there. My radios are in the center here, throttle flaps, and a couple sensors over here. All the rest of my components are going to be in this center section. So batteries, ignition, fuel pumps, fuses, and then I have lighting down in here. So that's where the majority of all my switches and things will be. Yeah, the Evolution panel looks really cool. It does provide a lot of ability to go left and right. But again, you do lose a lot of that room to put wiring and other things like that. Sonny also says, yeah, I heard there's a long back order for standard aircraft cylinder engines because of supply chain issues. Yeah, if you haven't seen the video I did a while back on our channel, I think the title was No Engines. Take a look at that because we ran into that issue. Our original plan was to have the Continental Experimental XIO, TIO, whatever it is, XIO 370 on here, which is very similar to what the demo aircraft has. So we purchased the firewall forward kit, which, you know, came with the engine mount, the cooling and the heating system, the ductwork, all of your push-pull levers, pretty much everything to mount the engine up, the oil filter system and all that. So you have to buy the firewall forward package, then you have to buy the engine. Again, that's something that adds close to $10,000 to the price of a Continental. So if you see Continental's price and it's used to be 35, then it was 38, then it's 44, you still got to add another 10,000 just to get that engine running on the plane, because it doesn't include all this stuff. And that's what was so nice about Viking, is not only did they have an engine in a week for me, but it came with all this stuff, all the stuff you need to make it work. So that's definitely something to consider. And the hesitancy with going from a traditional engine, as we would think of them, to something like the Viking, you know, for me initially, Viking was definitely one of the ones I was going to pick, but I thought, you know, I'm building this plane, I probably should go with an old-fashioned engine that works. And so I went the Continental route, bought the firewall forward kit. Then I call up Zenith, and it's not Zenith's fault, but Zenith is the one that has to order your engine, because they have a special system, a special order number for that engine with the Zenith aircraft. So I call up, talk to Zenith, and they're like, let me call them. I think there's an issue. And basically Caitlin said, yeah, you know, they're not even going to take an order right now. And I said, what does that mean? They're not going to take an order? And they said, they're just not going to take an order. Well, you also have to keep in mind that Continental, along with a lot of the other aviation manufacturers right now, is owned by a Chinese company. So I don't know whose heads are in charge of what there, but the rep in the U.S. was like, listen, I can't even give you a price, because I don't even know what the price is going to be, let alone we don't have the parts to make them anyways. So I'm just like, you got to be crazy. I mean, if you had $100,000, they wouldn't sell you an engine. So that's kind of what that video was about, and the frustration. And luckily, Alyssa at Viking Aircraft Engines came through, and bam, I've got an engine on the aircraft, and probably a 10 times more advanced engine than I would have had with the Continental. So, you know, there's something to be said for that. You know, I think in my mind, Continental kind of did me wrong, because they wouldn't even sell you one. They didn't have an answer, but yet I had purchased a firewall forward kit that could only be used for their engine, basically, and I was stuck, kind of left with no engine. And no, I don't even know what the status is now. I'd be interested to know if anybody knows out there, to call them and say, A, what is the price, and B, can I get one right away? And let me know what they say. But that's in the past. I got the Viking. I'm happy. I've flown with the Viking on the Viking demo aircraft. It is an amazing engine. This plane, with a big guy like me, with Jan in the plane, full fuel, blasted off the runway in about 20 feet. So there's not going to be any issues with power on this engine. And to have an engine that's advanced, it's water-cooled, liquid-cooled, I should say. It's not water-cooled. It's antifreeze, special antifreeze-cooled. You know, injected, electronic, everything's controlled by the ECU. Redundant fuel pumps, redundant batteries, engine-driven fuel pump. So a lot of people have questions about, oh, if you lose your batteries, you lose your fuel pump. You don't. So really, and if you see this engine run, how smooth it is, it's pretty much just change the oil and change the gearbox oil once in a while, and that's it. You know, the propeller, I want to say it had at least a 1,800 to 2,000 hour TBO, and all Duke requires is that you send the propellers back, and they look at them, and they either send you new ones, or they say, no, this is good for another 2,000 hours. So it's just an awesome package. The Duke propeller, the 5-bladed propeller, carbon fiber prop with the Viking aircraft engine, sweet package, and it's perfect for the Super Duty. And I know there's a lot of them in the 130 size. This is the 195 horse. The 130 is the popular one for the standard STOL or the cruiser, and there's tons of those out there. You can do all your research you want, and everybody that I've seen has been happy with those engines. So, well, guys, we're kind of coming to, what do we got, 7:39 here. We've been up for about an hour. Does anybody else have any other questions? I do appreciate everybody dialing in, and hopefully the invites and the alerts are getting out there so that you can actually know that we're doing these. We're trying to do some kind of advanced stuff with multiple cameras just to kind of keep everybody interested in the build. We're still working on all that. We're working on our equipment here. Ultimately, we're going to have a build night, if you will. So instead of me just yapping for an hour and answering questions, we'll actually be doing some work. That might be when we're building the wings. It might be when we're doing something with the engine. And maybe we'll just have it live and you guys can ask questions and we'll just be out here working. The last ones that we've been doing are just kind of a Q&A. And you can jump on and ask any question you want. And we've got a ton of questions on here. Yeah, that 5-bladed Duke is an awesome, yeah, it is. It's really nice. And the first 5-bladed propeller that was on the factory demo, that is what they call a Swirl 3. So it's a 5-bladed Duke propeller, but the model number is a Swirl 3. Mine is called the Flash 3, and it's actually got a longer cord. It's a fatter propeller, so it looks a little better on there. It doesn't look like those little skinny samurai swords you might see like on an ultralight. So that's one thing I did like, is it's got a lot better look to it. It's got a chunkier blade on there. And can you grab that spinner over there, Major? The cone. Let me show you this this nose cone too. Right there. Just hand it over to me. Yeah, this is a little dusty, but I mean, look at this spinner. This is 100% carbon fiber, and this is not polished and buffed out and then clear coated. This is right out of the mold. This is the plain carbon fiber weave right out of the mold. Duke has a proprietary way that they build these. Both their propeller blades, the spinner hub, the actual hub that holds the blades themselves, everything on it is carbon fiber, and they have a very unique way that they build these. This thing feels like it weighs like about a half a pound. It's literally super lightweight, but man, is this thing going to look sharp up here. I mean, this thing is going to be a mean looking machine by the time we get that nose cone and blades on there. So just wanted to share that. But, well, guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks, Sonny. Appreciate you coming in there, Ferdy. Great show. Thanks for showing us around. Yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in. And make sure you guys like the video. Leave a comment. As soon as the stream gets done, it gets saved and it gets put up. And we have 2 playlists now. We have a Super Duty build list, and then we have a Super Duty live list. So there's 2 different playlists, one for the live streams and one just for the build videos. Make sure you like and subscribe to both of those, and you'll get notifications when we do go live. So even if you forgot about a live, or maybe we decide to do a live that's not on a Saturday, if you subscribe and you hit the notification bell and you say you want to be notified for all, then if we go live, boom, you'll get a little notification on your phone or your laptop or iPad or whatever, and it'll let you know that we're going live. So again, guys, Adam and the AeroWorks Workshop, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Fun having you guys on, asking questions. I like sharing the build with you. We're going to go check out and see what UPS dropped off, because I think it's the parts we're waiting on. And we'll probably start filming that tomorrow. And hopefully midweek you'll be seeing part 2, which will be episode 51, part 2 of the fuel system video. And that will be our next video. So again, guys, thanks. It's Adam with AeroWorks. Major's out here helping me do video stuff. And we will see you on the next video. Thanks for tuning in, guys.